Love is supposed to feel safe. It's supposed to be the place you run to, not the thing you have to recover from. But for so many women, love becomes the very thing that breaks them. Not because they chose to love recklessly, not because they weren't enough, but because the man they gave their heart to didn't know how to hold it. There's a silent heartbreak that comes from giving your all to someone who says he cares, yet keeps showing up in ways that hurt you. And what's worse, he doesn't even seem to realize the damage he's causing, or worse, he justifies it. You begin to question yourself. Did I love too much? Was I too patient, too forgiving? Why does he hurt me when all I ever did was love him? This speech is for the woman who's asked those questions. It's for the one who gave her best and still ended up broken. And it's for the woman ready to understand the truth, not to blame, but to free herself from the pain. Let's talk about why men hurt the women who love them, and more importantly, how to protect your heart without closing it off to the love you truly deserve. Humo, of the deepest pain in a relationship doesn't come from betrayal or neglect. It comes from being hurt by someone you trusted with your love. It's confusing when a man who once adored you suddenly becomes distant, cold, or even cruel, especially when you know in your heart that you never gave him a reason to turn on you. You were loyal, you were present, you were loving, so why did he hurt you? The answer, while not an excuse, often lies in something we don't talk about enough: the unhealed emotional wounds that men carry, and how those wounds silently shape the way they love or fail to love the women in their lives. Many men walk into relationships with unresolved pain that they've buried deep beneath the surface. That pain might come from a father who was emotionally unavailable, or a mother who loved conditionally. It might come from being told to man up every time they cried as a child, or being taught that feelings are weaknesses instead of signals. For some, it's past heartbreaks they never processed, times they were betrayed, rejected, or made to feel like they weren't enough. And because no one ever showed them how to face those emotions, they did what seemed like the only option: shove it all down, put up a wall, and move on like nothing ever happened. But here's the thing about buried wounds: they don't go away. They fester. They get triggered, and when a woman shows up with real love, love that sees through the surface, that touches the vulnerable places, that offers safety, it doesn't always feel safe to him. It feels exposed. And exposure to someone who's been taught that vulnerability is dangerous is terrifying. So instead of leaning in, he pulls away. Instead of opening up, he shuts down, or worse, he lashes out. Not because he doesn't care, but because something inside him is deeply afraid. Afraid of being seen, afraid of being left, afraid of losing control. And that fear drives him to act in ways that hurt the very person trying to love him. The tragic irony is that your love may be the most honest, healing force he's ever encountered. But if he's still living in survival mode, still operating from the pain of what happened years ago, then your love doesn't feel like a blessing. It feels like a threat. Because in order to fully receive it, he would have to let go of the armor that's kept him emotionally protected his whole life. And not every man is ready for that. Some will try for a while, they'll show you glimpses of affection, maybe even open up a little, but the closer you get, the more unsettled they feel. They're not used to emotional intimacy. They've mastered physical connection, charm, maybe even commitment in name, But when it comes to the kind of emotional vulnerability real love requires, they feel like they're drowning. And when people feel like they're drowning, they reach for control. They sabotage, they criticize, they blame. Not because they want to lose you, but because they don't know how to keep you without feeling like they're losing themselves. He may have moments of guilt, of clarity, of softness, but if he hasn't faced his wounds, those moments won't last. The cycle returns. Distance, silence, arguments that don't make sense, emotional walls, and you're left wondering if it's your fault. You start questioning your worth, adjusting your behavior, trying to be less emotional, less needy, more understanding, thinking maybe if you just love him the right way, he'll stop hurting you. But it's not about how well you love him, it's about whether he's done the work to truly love himself. Because until a man confronts his pain, until he looks inward and heals what's broken, no amount of external love will ever feel like enough. He'll keep running from the very thing he craves. He'll keep testing your loyalty, your limits, and your heart. And you'll keep bleeding from wounds you didn't create. That's why it's so important to remember this. It is not your responsibility to heal the pain inside a man. You can support him, you can love him, you can stand by him, but you cannot do his emotional work for him. And if he refuses to face himself, it will always be you who pays the price. This doesn't mean he's a bad person, but love that is not grounded in self-awareness becomes dangerous. It becomes reckless. It becomes harmful. And love that hurts consistently is not love. It's a reflection of someone's inner chaos spilling into your life. You deserve to be with someone who doesn't make you feel like you're walking on emotional eggshells. You deserve a partner who doesn't punish you for loving him too deeply. And you absolutely deserve a love that doesn't leave you feeling confused, blamed, or emotionally starved. If you've been hurt by a man who couldn't love you the way you deserved, let this be the truth you hold onto. You didn't break him. You triggered the places inside him that were already broken. And while that may have been the beginning of his healing, it should not have come at the cost of your peace. Real love doesn't require you to bleed to prove your devotion. It invites you to grow, to feel safe, and to be seen without punishment. So if you're still holding on to the hope that he'll change, ask yourself, has he even admitted that he's hurting? Has he even tried to face the pain he carries? If the answer is no, it's time to understand that your love alone won't save him. Only his courage to heal will. And until he finds that courage, your job is not to wait. Your job is to protect your heart, honor your worth, and remind yourself the man who is meant for you will not hurt you to protect himself. There's something incredibly powerful about being loved. It reaches places inside of us that even we may have forgotten. But for some men, that power feels less like a gift and more like a threat, especially when the love being offered is real, when it's consistent, deep, and emotionally present. The kind of love that sees past the surface and wants to connect with the real man underneath the arm. And it's in those very moments when a woman offers her heart openly that some men begin to distance themselves. They pull back. They start acting cold. They shut down emotionally or even start arguments out of nowhere. And the woman is left wondering what just happened. How can loving someone make them retreat? How can care, kindness, and connection push someone further away? The truth is, for many men, vulnerability feels dangerous, not because the woman in front of them is unsafe, but because their inner world is still telling them that opening up is weakness. From a young age, many men are taught that emotions make you soft, that strength means being unaffected, that real men don't cry, don't show fear, and certainly don't rely on anyone else to feel okay. And when those beliefs are deeply embedded, vulnerability feels like exposure, like stepping into a spotlight with no protection. It doesn't feel like intimacy, it feels like risk. So when a woman loves a man with depth and tenderness, he may start to feel something he doesn't know how to handle, seen. And being seen means all of him is on display, not just the confident, composed parts, but the insecurities, the fears, the doubts. And if he hasn't made peace with those parts of himself, being seen becomes overwhelming. Instead of feeling comforted by love, he feels threatened by it. It's important to understand this isn't always conscious. He's not sitting there thinking, she's making me feel vulnerable, so I need to hurt her. It's more subtle than that. It's an instinctive recoil from emotional intimacy. It's a self-protection mechanism. The closer you get to the parts of him he's not comfortable with, the more his defense systems activate. And sometimes those defenses look like coldness, withdrawal, detachment. Other times, they look like picking fights, blaming you, accusing you of being too needy or too emotional. What's really happening is that he's uncomfortable with his own emotional exposure. He's not pushing you away because you did something wrong. He's pushing you away because your love is revealing pieces of himself he'd rather avoid. The parts that question whether he's enough. The parts that wonder if he's lovable. The parts that tell him not to trust anyone too much because people always leave. And those beliefs, if left unchecked, run the show. So instead of leaning into the relationship and growing through the discomfort, he creates distance. And here's where the heartbreak deepens, because the woman often blames herself. She thinks, did I come on too strong? Was I too emotional? Did I make him feel pressured? And she begins to shrink herself. She starts giving less, asking for less, dimming her love in hopes that it will make him feel safer. But love isn't supposed to be about performing safety for someone who hasn't dealt with his fear of intimacy. Love is meant to be real, open, reciprocal. And when someone is afraid of that, it's not your job to stop being loving. It's their responsibility to ask themselves why receiving love feels like a threat. What's even more painful is when the man starts treating you like the problem. He might act irritated, disinterested, or emotionally unavailable. He might even question the relationship. Not because the love is lacking, but because the intimacy is getting too real. And instead of saying, this scares me, or I'm not used to being this emotionally close, he acts out. He may flirt with other women, spend less time with you, or focus all his energy on work, distractions, or isolation. Not because you're too much, but because the vulnerability feels like too much. He's afraid of needing you, afraid of depending on you emotionally, afraid that if he lets himself fully care, he'll lose control. And for many men, control is safety. Control means no one can hurt you. No one can leave you because you never let them all the way in to begin with. And so in the name of control, he pushes away the very thing he wants most. He says he wants love, connection, understanding, but when it arrives, he doesn't know how to hold it. He doesn't know how to sit in the emotional discomfort and let himself be known. He doesn't know how to say, "This scares me, but I want to try." So instead, he chooses distance over depth. If you've been on the receiving end of this kind of emotional withdrawal, know that it's not about you being unlovable. It's about him not being ready to be vulnerable. And readiness is everything. A man can be kind, charming, and even deeply interested in you, but if he isn't ready to face himself, he won't be able to face intimacy with you. He'll keep reaching a threshold and then backing away. He'll keep sabotaging moments that feel too emotional. He'll keep choosing surface level safety over emotional depth, not because he doesn't want love, but because love requires vulnerability, and vulnerability feels like loss of control. But here's the hard truth: love and control can't coexist. You can't build real intimacy while holding on to fear. You can't be fully loved if you're constantly hiding parts of yourself. And you can't receive love if your instinct is to run from the very closeness you crave. So, if you find yourself loving someone who keeps pulling away, ask yourself, is he truly unable to be vulnerable, or is he just unwilling to try? Because you can't build a relationship where one person is opening their heart and the other is guarding theirs like a fortress. You deserve someone who is willing to sit with the discomfort of being seen. Someone who chooses closeness even when it's hard. Someone who doesn't mistake emotional intimacy for danger. Because when a man is truly ready for love, vulnerability won't scare him away. It'll call him to rise. And the love you offer won't feel like too much. It'll feel like home. When a woman loves a man deeply, she often does so with her whole heart. She gives without holding back. She believes in him, supports him, and offers a kind of loyalty that few people ever experience. But sometimes the man she loves doesn't respond with the same kind of emotional maturity or depth. Instead, he begins to hurt her. Not in obvious aggressive ways, but in subtle emotional ways that are just as damaging. And in these moments, she's left questioning why someone she's shown so much love and patience could turn around and cause her. One of the most painful truths she may eventually uncover is this: he hurts her because he feels powerless in other areas of his life, and the relationship becomes the place where he tries to regain that control. Many men are taught from a very young age that they must always be in control. Control equals strength. Control equals masculinity. Control equals success. So when a man feels like he's failing in life, whether it's in his career, finances, family, or self-worth, he starts to feel weak. And when he feels weak, he starts searching for somewhere, anywhere, to feel powerful again. Often, that somewhere becomes his relationship. It becomes the one space where he feels like he can reassert his dominance, even if it's at the expense of the woman who loves him. He may not even realize he's doing it. That's the complexity of this dynamic. It's not usually a conscious choice. He doesn't wake up and decide to hurt you. But when he's frustrated, insecure, or disappointed in himself, the emotional weight of those feelings needs somewhere to go. And if he hasn't developed healthy tools to deal with them, he displaces that frustration onto you. suddenly you're the one he criticizes. You're the one he distances himself from. You're the one he controls through silence, withdrawal, or unpredictable behavior. Not because of what you've done, but because you're the safest outlet for his pain. The woman becomes the emotional punching bag. Not because she deserves it, but because she's available. Because she loves him enough to stay. Because he knows, even if unconsciously, that she will absorb his mood swings, his coldness, his inconsistency. And so, without meaning to, she becomes the person who pays the price for all the battles he's fighting within himself. This can show up in 100 different ways. Maybe he starts acting emotionally distant when you're at your happiest, bringing your joy back down to his level of inner turmoil. Maybe he begins undermining your confidence with subtle comments or gaslighting, so he doesn't have to face how inadequate he feels next to your strength. Or maybe he keeps moving the goalposts in the relationship, never fully committing, never giving you the emotional security you need, because controlling how close you get is his way of maintaining power in at least one area of his life. In all these cases, what he's really doing is trying to protect his ego. He feels powerless in the world, so he tries to feel powerful in the relationship. And that power, instead of being shared, becomes a weapon. It becomes a way to avoid confronting his fears of failure, rejection, or not being enough. And it ends up creating a dynamic where love turns into a battleground rather than a refuge. But here's the most heartbreaking part. The more he feels you love him, the more threatened he might become, because your love reflects back to him the kind of man he wishes he could be. Your belief in him becomes a painful reminder of his own self-doubt. And so instead of rising to meet your love with growth, he starts resenting it. He resents the way you see him. He resents your strength, your stability, your emotional presence, because each of those things reminds him of what he struggles to embody within himself. This is why some men hurt the women who love them most, not because they are heartless, not because they are incapable of love, but because they haven't figured out how to feel strong within themselves without taking power from someone else. And when love starts to feel like a mirror, they reject the reflection instead of doing the work to change it. If you've ever felt like no matter how much love you give, it's never enough. If you've ever been made to feel small in the moments you should have felt most cherished. If you've ever been confused by the shift in his behavior when things seem to be going well, you're not imagining it, you're not overreacting, and most importantly, you're not to blame. What's happening is that your love is touching a part of him he hasn't healed, a part of him that feels powerless. And instead of working through that powerlessness in a healthy way, he tries to reverse the roles. He tries to hold power over you, to control how much you feel seen, how much you feel secure, how much love you feel at all, because that's the only way he knows how to keep his emotional fears at bay. But that is not love. That is not the kind of relationship you deserve. Because real love is not about control. It's not about power. It's not about who wins or who stays dominant. Real love is about vulnerability, partnership, and the willingness to face hard truths together. A man who truly loves you will not feel the need to hurt you to feel strong. He will not use your love as a place to dump his pain. He will not make you feel like you're walking on emotional eggshells every time he feels inadequate. Instead, he will look inward. He will do the work to feel whole on his own. He will see your love as a gift, not a threat. And if he's not there yet, if he continues to hurt you instead of healing himself, then you need to ask yourself the most important question of all. Are you staying because you believe in his potential or because you've forgotten your own worth? You cannot heal a man by allowing him to hurt you. You cannot make him feel powerful by shrinking yourself. And you cannot build a healthy relationship when your love is being used to soothe someone's wounded ego. You deserve to be loved by someone who doesn't need to take your power to feel like a man. Someone who doesn't punish you for the love you give. Someone who feels strongest, not when he controls you, but when he protects, supports, and honors you. And that kind of man, he doesn't fear your love. He rises to meet it. One of the hardest truths to accept in love is this: not everyone is capable of giving you the love you give them. You can be patient, you can be kind, you can be emotionally available and endlessly loyal. You can do everything right. But if the man you're loving doesn't know how to receive love, or worse, doesn't believe he deserves it, he will find ways to sabotage it. And when that happens, it has nothing to do with your worth. It has everything to do with the emotional work he hasn't done within himself. A man can want love and still reject it. He can crave connection but run from intimacy. He can look at you and see everything he's ever wanted and still push you away. Why? Because deep down, he doesn't believe it's real. Or if it is real, he believes it won't last. He doubts it, questions it, picks it apart. Because he doubts himself. The problem isn't your love. It's his ability to trust it. Some men have grown up without a healthy model of what love looks like. Maybe they had parents who were emotionally inconsistent, who used love as a tool for control, or who only offered affection when it was earned. Maybe they experienced betrayal at a young age, or heartbreak they never healed from. Whatever the source, these early experiences plant a seed. That love is unsafe. That vulnerability leads to pain. But the moment you get too close, people will leave. So he learns to protect himself, not just from others, but from you. Even if you've never given him a reason to fear you, he builds walls. He keeps emotional distance. He says the right words, makes the right moves, but he never fully lets himself be seen. Because in his mind, the closer he gets, the more he stands to lose. He doesn't understand that love isn't about control or safety. It's about presence, about staying, about choosing someone even when it feels scary. When a man doesn't believe he deserves love, he looks for flaws in the people who offer it to him. He becomes hypercritical. He starts pointing out the ways you're too much, too emotional, too needy, when in reality what he's really saying is, this feels too close, or this is touching a part of me I'm not ready to deal with. He may even create distance just to see if you'll chase him, because a part of him needs to prove that love always comes with conditions, that people only stick around until they get tired of him. You may find yourself trying harder, loving more, proving your loyalty, because it hurts to be kept at arm's length. It hurts to be seen as a threat when all you've done is care. But the truth is, no matter how much you give, It will never be enough for a man who doesn't feel worthy of being loved. He will always be waiting for the other shoe to drop, always looking for a reason to run, and eventually your love becomes the very thing that makes him uncomfortable because it contradicts the story he's told himself about who he is. This is the cycle so many women find themselves trapped in. You love him through his silence. You forgive him after he pulls away. You excuse his emotional walls because he's been through a lot. And you keep hoping that eventually your love will be enough to convince him that he's worthy. But love doesn't work like that. You can show someone their value, but you can't make them believe it. You can stand in front of someone, open-hearted and ready, but if they are emotionally unavailable or emotionally unhealed, they will always find a way to reject what you offer. Sometimes the rejection comes in the form of emotional withdrawal. Other times it looks like sabotage, picking fights, flirting with other women, making you feel like you're asking for too much when all you want is emotional connection. And in the most painful situations, it ends with him walking away altogether, not because he didn't care, but because caring felt like losing control. Because loving you would require him to face the parts of himself that don't feel lovable. What you need to understand is that someone's inability to receive love is not a reflection of your failure. It's a reflection of their fear. And no amount of over-functioning on your part will heal that fear. No amount of proving your love will suddenly make him capable of returning it in the way you deserve. If anything, the more you try, the more exhausted you'll become. And the more he'll pull away because your efforts start to shine a light on just how emotionally unavailable he really is. It's okay to want to be loved back in the way you love. That's not asking for too much. It's asking for the bare minimum in a healthy relationship. You deserve someone who doesn't flinch at closeness, who doesn't get defensive when you express your feelings, who doesn't turn your love into a threat. You deserve a man who meets you with the same level of presence, who sees your heart and holds it with care instead of suspicion. But here's the hard part. Sometimes loving someone means letting go, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally realized that staying was costing you your peace. That trying to force someone to believe they're lovable was breaking your own sense of worth. That continuing to offer love where it can't be received is not romantic, it's self-abandonment. You are not here to fix anyone. You are not here to prove to someone that they are worthy. You are not responsible for healing the parts of them they refuse to face. What you are responsible for is your own heart, your own emotional health, your own self-respect. So if you're loving a man who keeps pushing you away, ask yourself, is this love helping you grow, or is it shrinking who you are? Are you being met with the same emotional maturity you're offering? Or are you constantly having to explain, justify, and minimize your needs just to stay close? Because real love, healthy love, feels safe, it feels consistent, it feels mutual, and it is only with someone who has done the emotional work to receive it that your love will finally land in the way it was meant to. Let this be your reminder. You were never too much. You were just loving someone who wasn't ready.